Hi, welcome to NFPA LiNK YouTube channel. This page is dedicated to answering key questions you have related to electrical and life safety. With easy-to-use digital access to NFPA codes and standards, NFPA LiNK is your window to productivity. Let's start off by looking at a definition that's going to be important to understand before we dive into the commodity classes. Definitions are found over in Chapter 3, and 3.3.37 is going to be our definition for commodity. Now, commodity is a combination of products, packaging material, and the container that determines the commodity classification. So it's important to understand that it's not only the product itself. Say your product's going to be a liquid in a glass jar. So it's not only going to be that product, but it's going to be the packaging material. So whether or not you're going to use foam packing peanuts, whether you're going to use a cardboard divider on the inside, whether or not it's a single or double layered cardboard box it's being stored in, as well as whether it's on a pallet, whether it's not on a pallet. Is that pallet made out of wood or is it made out of some other plastic material? All of these are going to come into play when we look at the commodity classification because they all affect the flammability characteristics of that material. So with that definition under our belt, let's jump over to Chapter 20. Chapter 20 being the general requirements for storage, and 20.4 are commodity classes. So now we're over at 20.4, our commodity classes. We can see Class 1. A Class 1 commodity is defined as a non-combustible product that meets one of the following criteria. So it's either placed directly on wooden pallets, it's placed in a single layered cardboard box, with or without single thickness cardboard dividers, with or without pallets, or shrink wrapped or paper wrapped as a unit load, with or without pallets. So we're going to see this with or without pallets a few times here, and this means that basically whether or not it has a pallet, the commodity classification isn't going to change. But that's not necessarily true, because if you look over in 20.3 in the pallet section, you'll see that if it's a plastic pallet, certain type of plastic pallet, then you're going to increase the commodity classification. And if it's a reinforced plastic pallet, you may have to increase that commodity classification again. So that's important to keep in mind as we look at these things that say with or without pallets. It doesn't necessarily give you the whole picture right here. Something else to keep in mind is that the annex section over in these commodity classifications have helpful tables that give you examples of those classes of commodities. Now let's look at Class 2. Class 2 is still going to be non-combustible products. When we talk about non-combustible products, we think of things like glass or metal or things like stone, masonry materials, stuff like that. So Class 1 is going to be non-combustible products stored in very specific things. Class 2, how we store that's going to be changed. It's still non-combustible material, but now it's allowed to be in wooden crates, wooden boxes, multiple layered cardboard boxes, or equivalent packaging. Now, it's going to get a little bit more complicated when we move over to Class 3, because this is allowed to be made out of regular combustibles such as wood, paper, natural fibers, or Group C plastics. And we're going to talk about with or without cartons, boxes, crates, and with or without pallets. Now, the complications here is that Class 3 commodities are allowed to have a very small amount of Group A or Group B plastics, and that's less than 5% by volume of expanded plastics and less than 5% by weight of non-expanded plastics. These are going to be reflected in these tables right here, or figures 20.4.3.3a, which are going to be your commodities cartons with or within a wooden container containing a mixture of expanded and non-expanded Group A plastics. And then the figure below that, 20.4.3.3.b, is the same thing except we're looking now at exposed. So you're no longer in a wooden container or you're not in a cardboard box or anything like that. So basically, you can see a Class 3 right here is under 5% of both Group A plastics by weight and by volume. Now, additional complications come when we look at Class 4. Class 4 commodity is defined as a product with or without pallets that meets one of the following criteria. So this one can be constructed partially or completely by Group B plastics. So Group B plastics are equivalent to a Class 4, and then Group C plastics are equivalent to a Group 3, as we saw up here. Group C plastics are equivalent to a Group 3. All right, let's get back down to group 4, or class 4, excuse me. So there's going to be additional requirements here. It says it can consist of free-flowing group A plastic materials, and there's going to be some limitations on whether it's cartoned. So you can see 3, 4, and 5 give you those cartoned limitations, and then items 6 and 7 give you those exposed limitations, which are all reflected in these two tables, or these two figures up here. So you can see between 5 and 25% of group A expanded plastics, you can still be a class 4 commodity. And then when you're over here, between 5 and 15% of your percentage by weight of group A non-expanded plastics, you can still be a class 4 commodity. And then finally down here, you can see the remaining materials shall be permitted to be non-combustible wood, paper, natural fibers, or group B or C plastics. So I know that was quick, but that's a quick recap of our class 1, 2, 3, and 4 materials. We hope that provides some insight into our non-plastic commodity classifications for NFPA 13. For more information about how NFPA LiNK gives you the knowledge you need to know to get the job done right, visit nfpa.org/link.